Yes, hello, and welcome to Happy New Year 2018 January IrisBG webinar with Havard from Iris and Greg Payton, the trustful and reliable Greg, from the Dawes Arboretum in Ohio with minus 10 degrees and lots of snow. And probably that's Celsius. How much in Fahrenheit?
Yeah, the warm temperature today, since it's warm, is actually 13 degrees in Fahrenheit. So.
Okay, yeah. So so a snowstorm in North America and not in Britain. Here it's mild and wet. So yeah, okay. Today we have we got some questions from Elaine, who's joined us, that we're going to go through, and then we also had one question from a garden about efficient ways to record or keep track of a seed catalog. And then, of course, if you have other questions, come with them, and we'll see what we can do. To see what we can cover in. We try to keep this webinar for 50 minutes or thereabouts, but if we run over, we will do that. we'll stop. We stop at 4 o'clock regardless, I think. So, and then we'll do any follow up after that if necessary. Before we do the lists from Elaine, we'll do the question about index eminence. So I have a trial database here. I'm going to bring that up. So for those of you who, so index eminence or building up seed catalogs, it's used by a lot of gardens in Europe and not so many in North America, but Dawes Arboretum is one of them. So the idea is to record or build up a catalog of seeds that you want to offer to share with other institutions or private people. It's typically shared for free, and it's typically done in a sort of reciprocal manner. So those who offer seeds will often also be allowed to get seeds from others. All this happens down here in the store section here, and you have the structure here is that you have a store or where you keep your seeds, and you see here in the trial database there's only one, which makes a lot of sense. And then when you've added this, you then go and record what you have in stock, so that you tell people, we have so many seeds of that. So the big thing there is that you don't need to accession that material. So for many gardens, it's wild collected material, that not necessarily something they're going to use. Some of them might use in their own garden, and then some of it is then of course of great interest for other gardens elsewhere. And the way to
point to add to that, the policy of Dawes is to accession anything that is ever stored here. So even if it's only given away or sold, it's still accessioned, because we've had many times when things have somehow made it into collections that were never intended to. So that's just a point that I'd like to make.
Yeah, exactly. So the way to add things to your store would be to go in here in the stock items screen and clear it, and then you start by saying, okay, we have. You have to fill in, the origin and what type of material it is. So it's seed. And then you can then say, okay, this is a seed of, I'm just going to pick something here. I mean, it's not really, hopefully it's, let's say it's in these, just for, and then you just save that, and then you will see that it's now entered. So you say, okay, we have this. You can record a bit more about how many you have or whatever quantity, who collected it and stuff like that. But this is the sort of minimum requirement. So the question I got from one of the people earlier on is that they were very used to building up the seed catalog. They accession, like you do, Greg, they accession everything. And then they are very used to recording the stock items sporadically whilst working with the accessions. So they found it a bit sort of cumbersome to go in here all the time. So the question was, is there any way to just be able to be here in the accession screen, and just add it directly to the stock items. So the proposal I had, which you could probably then sort of help me to support or say it's a stupid idea, Greg, is to use a custom attribute, and then so you can just tag each accessions you want that you have collected for the seed catalog, and then you can add those later when you're ready to produce the catalog. So because the reason you could do that now is that you can also now delete custom attributes after they've been used. So you could use it for these kind of ad hoc things as well, which can be quite handy. So let's do that, and then we'll see how that works. So if I go here into custom attributes or custom fields, for those who are a bit unfamiliar with that. So let's say I go in here, and then I add a new field for accession screen, which I say seed. I just call it index seminum 2018, for example. And then we'll say that's a bool, like that. So bool means
like yes or no.
Yes and no. Yeah, exactly. So these when you add these custom fields, you can decide what kind of data type you're going to use when you record information. There are a lot of tutorials about that elsewhere, so I'm not going to go in details with there. So now I've did that, and then when you use that now, when I go back to, so let's say I'm sitting with this record and say, okay, we have one of those here, so I can just say index seminum and take it off and then save it. So now we've added that, say, okay, we have one of those. And then later on in the morning, you find, oh, we want to add this one. And then we got that. And let's just do a few more. Just so. And so you see, this is quite, it's a few more clicks than you might want. It's not, but it's not too bad, I hope. So when you then finish that at some later point, 2 days later or something, you can then go back into, okay, say you want to now fill up your store. So you go to stock items, and then you clear. You can use clear keep, so you keep some of these information already, so you don't have to re-enter those basic information. And then you can go in here to search for accessions you want to add. And then I can then use advanced search to search for this custom attribute. So we're just saying every accession that has been tagged with index seminum 2018. And no data found, which is interesting.
Were there items on those accessions?
That's the problem. Probably. It's a good point. Let's go back and Dr. Watson.
Well, actually, it does show an item, but make sure it's alive. Make sure the item.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll search for. I'll say give me. What I'll do is I'll just do like this.
There you go.
And then
look for the green dots.
I sort of had the dead plants or no plants or whatever. So here we go. Let's start again. I love these demonstrations that go pear-shaped. It's
pear-shaped. Can you describe my body type?
Okay. Well, I'm really glad that you were here, Greg, because. Okay, we do 2 more. At least I know that Digitalis has seeds to collect, so just a Primula. Okay, good. Okay, we got 4 now. That should do it. So going back to our story.
Now we'll see.
Here we go. Same story. Click here, and then advanced search. Index seminum equals yes. Search. What is going on here?
Do you have to restart the program before that new field takes effect?
No.
Or is recognized?
I'm just gonna. It's not empty, just to see if that helps. Oh, there's something interesting going on here. Well, okay. that's a tip if you have problems with. I think we got a little bit of a feature there. So and then you can do for those who you click Control A to select the whole list, and then select and close, and then you have added all those to your stock items list.
I do a similar thing. Not you just try to save a blank one, but I do a similar thing. But I actually inventory all the seeds that I'm going to add, and then I'll do a task list of the accessions, and then search for them that way. Yeah,
and that's what so this was a direct response to the question, making it easy to add to that list, so you don't have to go.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But okay, yeah, that's an alternative to create a task list. So that's, I think, what a lot of people do. But the reason I wanted to add this idea to use custom attribute is that the new feature under custom attribute, where you can now go back here and say, okay, now we've prepared the list, and then you can just delete it again. So you see here now everything will disappear, also the tagging of all those accessions. That's something you couldn't do before, so it was a bit more tricky to get rid of these attributes. But now that's done, and so you can use that as a sort of almost like an ad hoc task. Okay, so that was the question as an alternative way to tag records. Okay, cool. Then, okay. Oh, next save. I didn't save it. Sorry. There we go. Then, if there's no questions, or do you want to elaborate more on this, Greg? Or
no, that's effective. So you can either do it as you just described, as a task list once you show the events there, and a task. So you could do an accession or even an item task. I suppose you could just do accession, and then you could just have a list of the accession numbers of the items that are on your list, and then search for them that way, or directly. But you get the idea.
Let's say these three, for example, and add it that way.
Right. Yep. Then you can use that same advanced search feature within the store list to identify those plants or those accessions, or directly from if you go back to store and then go back to the store, there you go, the stock items, and then just if you clear, and then if you just type in the accession number that you want directly, or search for it individually with the ellipsis button. But if you know the accession number is blah, 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 you just type that in, and it adds it to the list. So if you have the list in front of you that's printed out, or labels from a tray of seeds sitting in front of you, you can just type them in directly.
Yeah. So now instead of using the attribute, I can now use the task that we created, index them, and then select all.
Yep. There you go.
Yep. Great. Okay.
And that's something that I'm going to be working on hopefully next week. We have a volunteer seeds ready to distribute, so she's gonna bring me a tray of all the seeds we're sending this year, and then I'll make the list. So.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. So you got a refresher now with this discussion. Just what you needed. Okay.
Go into the system now and add. So.
Okay. Let's thank you for the question. That was from Bert in the Netherlands who came with that question. So go to the next question from the list we have here. So the term used in Iris called collection, which is found several places. It's found on our website on the price list, and it's also in some of the literature, etc. And it's a bit confusing. It's here as well, collection, and And under management, we have also collection screen. So ideally, it should have been called collection site, I think. Because it, as the question indicates here as well, it's not to be confused with your national collection of maples or wisteria or whatever. It's in the context of IRIS, it's a site, a physical site typically. So for institutions who think, do I need to use IRIS for multiple collections? The only reason, or the question is collection sites. So do you have several gardens locations separate from each other? So you can use IRIS even if you have two sites that are not too far away. If you can use one map to cover both sites. If there's a lot of staff working on both sites, if there's a lot of plant material moving forth and back, and if you're happy to accession the material together on both sites, then you could just use IRIS as with one site. If you have two sort of gardens that are away from each other, the staff is different, accessioning is different, etc. Then you typically would set it up with two sites to separate the data and separate access control, etc., etc. But this again shouldn't be confused with the classical term that's used for collections of wisteria or maples or whatever. That is typically handled if you wanted to. Oops, here we go. I think yeah, that was a hiccup. I think I'm running on an experimental version. So that's a bit. Yep. So you could, like your maple collection, you typically can just use taxa. All the maples might be part of a maple collection, so it doesn't really matter. So you don't really record that information anywhere because they are per definition part of your maple collection. And there's plenty of ways to search for things based on genus or higher ranks as well. But sometimes the collection is more specific, and then you could, for example, introduce a custom attribute. I think I saw one in this particular database, so you could just have use that to fill that out. I need to have a record, obviously. I'm just going to bring something up and say, let's say we have our Acer collection here. Oh, well, it's part of the great collection, I see. I think I have get a deja vu here from a previous seminar or a webinar. So we're going to say it's part of the Eden collection. Yeah. And the only reason to record this is if there are some Acers that are part of the collection and some that are not. If all the Acers are part of this particular collection, then there's no point probably. And you could also consider using that term on the taxon instead of on the accession. Then you would go in here on the Acer taxon and saying if whatever plants we get of this particular species, we will consider it part of the collection, and then you would have the attribute here instead. I don't think we've added that on this one, but you get the point, I think. Okay, Greg, any supplements or?
No, I mean, that's an effective way to do it, but as you were saying, if you have like maybe some plants that are part of the collection and some that are not, if there's some other feature, like maybe just the wild collected plants are part of the collection, and you could just do a search for the genus and wild origin to separate those plants out that are part of that collection. So it depends on what the criteria you have and whether that's something that can be filtered easily. Yeah.
So the tip is don't sort of add lots of custom attributes for everything if you can actually find the information elsewhere. Yeah, that's.
If it's already built in that you can easily filter it, then don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. So that's the collection question.
And that actually might lead to Elaine's other question, where she was talking about on the page you're at right there, the accession type. You could Yeah, you could add, because I have like plants for collection, plants for distribution, plants for that are just vouchers only, things like that, and that's sort of how I differentiate my accession type. So I can sort of classify things that we just got into resell, things that we got into add to our living plant collections, things that we got in just to give away to some, like index eminum type distribution.
Yep.
But you could even introduce a category there that accession type is part of your collection.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
That's good. Nick mentioned that this type field can be used for sort of anything, and quite a lot of gardens don't use it for anything. But those who do, they do it because it's sort of quite an important part of how they deal with their collection. I know this particular trial database here, it stems from Oslo Botanic Garden. They have the garden divided into 3 separate kind of logical areas. So there's one head gardener who's in charge of the arboretum, and one is in charge of the rock garden, and one is in charge of the systematic garden. So they tag all the accessions for one or the other. So it really gives them, so when they print labels for the nursery, they can see on the label what part or who is sort of in charge of the plant material, you could say. And I know another garden use this. They have they classify their accessions based on their significance. So whether it's historic significant or whether it's conservation or whether it's other things. So then they can tag that, so they give you a clear idea about the importance of the plant material as well. So there are several ways to do that, and as you said, Greg, you could use it for a collection tagging if you need it.
Like a theme of some kind or something like that. Yeah. Yep. And the great thing about Iris, and it is just brilliant, and the fact that it is so customizable. You don't have to use what everybody else has used. There's certain things that are standardized, like provenance codes and things like that are. And you can follow guidelines in the rules for the distribution of plant records and things like that. But any other fields you can sort of customize to your own content, to your heart's content, and set them up how it makes sense for you.
Yep. Okay. Let's go to there was a question here. Custom attributes need to relate to a name, sort of like habit, height, thorns, geophyte, tree, shrub, herb, etc., or plant. Yeah, that's correct. So they would consider adding geophyte, grass, etc. So that's a life form. So let's go to the taxa screen and bring it up something here. I'm just going to bring up a record. Abies balsamia, for example. So there's a lot of details here. Life form. This particular list, you can tweak yourself, obviously. And we transfer. So when we transfer data for gardens, we try to. I know for BG Base, well, if you want to know that, there's actually a document about how we transfer data for BG Base, where we map data from several fields to my form list. I thought there was a train coming, but sorry. Yeah. So the question, I'm not sure what the question was really.
If you want to add different items to that list, you can just show them how you can go down to definitions and.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, I just want to say that this list here on the trial is very slim. We use a more substantial list when we transfer data. I see if I can bring something up here just to give you an idea. Never mind. I think we'll
if he's transferring data, it would be based on the categories that you already have in use.
Yeah, but sometimes there are, if for BG base gardens, for example, they wouldn't have life form. They will have a combination of other things. So we would then, but yes, we will based on what you use. But it's, I'm just going to bring up another database here just to show you definitions. Let's say code lists. So all the life forms, hold on, are to be found down here. And then here you got a lot of those drop downs. Some other drop downs have their own screen because the details are more, there's more to it than just a name and a code. But for those drop downs that are just the code, they're found here. So if you scroll down, you will find the life form here. Here we got all the ones, and it's very easy to add a new one. For example, just click plus here, and say, for example,
height or something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. So then you're in business. I don't know why I call it just VI, for example.
Yeah. If you already have the P2 down there for Vine, but you could split. Yeah. I mean,
there. I did have it. Yeah. Okay.
But if you wanted to add grass or something like that, or I mean, like a herbaceous perennial or something that's different.
Yeah. I'm just going to bring up an example. Here's a slightly better example. You see here, you have a bit more detailed options, and yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's.
I actually added one for fossil because we got some fossilized Dawn redwood cones that I accessioned to put in our herbarium. So I added fossil as one of our categories.
Yeah, but so is that a life form fossil? I mean, the taxa, meaning that doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, so the species doesn't, it's extinct, so that it can only be found as a fossilized form.
Correct.
So it's not really life then, is it? But anyway, that's another discussion.
But that was my way to separate it out. It's a species that only exists as a fossil.
That's. You could argue, does it exist? Well, anyway. Let's move on. Okay. So here's the question: how do I make a report for taxa with habit, tree hardiness, USDA zone less than 7 to plants that are in outdoor locations, for example? Yeah. So you would then typically you can either do a report or you can just search for them in the accession screen. We can try that first. If you do in the accession screen, you would then clear the screen, and then you would need to go straight in here to dig in for advanced search. And we wanted habit tree. Here we obviously then need to go on the taxon and use life form. So this particular collection don't have tree. Oh well, we have a few trees, so we could just do that then by saying in list. And then say, give me all the evergreen trees and deciduous trees.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's those two. And then we want hardiness. And then, I don't know, we don't have a hardness list here. But here you could do the same. You could do greater than or equal or whatever.
On the Trello version, that comes blank, but you can add your own hardiness zones.
Yeah.
And then text.
Yeah, we should have had a hardness zone here. It's a bit silly, but that would be the principle would be the same as I did here with the life form. We could
the USDA zones, and I think you use something a little bit different over there. So
yeah. But as in North America, you would get the USDA zones, or you could just add them yourself if you want to. So let's say we did USDN red list instead. Then you could. The greater than is a bit. I don't think that's option put on these ones. So let's see in list because it's not like a numeric thing. So you would then have to. Let's say you only want those, for example. And then you want all the ones that are in indoor location, for example. Then you would go into item, and then you would go into location codes. And here you could then, depending on how you start. Yeah, oh yeah, you just want plants, obviously. Then want seeds and things like that. And then you want to have everything that's alive. No, sorry, that was not the one. We want item status type here. So anything that's alive. So this will make a distinction. So you might want everything that's alive, and no, we'll just do that. Yeah. And then locations. So here, when you set up your location areas, you create a sort of structure. So if you have set it up that you get all the outdoor locations at one place, let's say we just do Arboretum in this case, and everything that's in the Arboretum. And you see the codes here are structured in a sort of structural manner.
Hold on.
Yeah. Oops, that's the one I want. And that should give you what you're looking for. So that's how you combine and build up quite an advanced kind of search thing. I won't get anything now, I think. No, because I asked for too many things. If I do not in list instead, maybe I get something. No. Anyway, doesn't matter. Yeah, I've filtered too many things, but you get the point. Okay. So that's of course the lesson to learn here as well. That if you don't record live form, it won't help much. You need to make sure that you have all this information recorded as well when you search for them, of course. So then the next question was, we would like to include web links in our data sources. Yeah, that web links are straightforward. So they are added to your taxa here under references. So we got a link here already to eFloras for this one. And if I want to add a new one, I could also, let's say we like to use Wikipedia to show details about our plants. Then I just did web search now to bring up. I'm just going to show you that. So I'll do it again. So you see that went a bit fast. So if I do web search and then Wikipedia. So oops, I'm coming on the wrong page here. Sorry about that. I have too many web servers. Try again, just so you see what's happening. I'll click Wikipedia, and then Iris will generate this one for you. So there's an article about this that looks quite nice. So maybe I want to have that as a reference to our records. So you can then go back. Hold on. And then, because it remembers the last web search, I can just click this blue button. And it will add it to my list here. And the ranking will then be used to decide whether you want to share this with visitors or not. So if I do 9 or 10, then it will be hidden. If I do 2, it will be listed after eFloras in this case. So that's for website, if you have a Garden Explorer website. And how that looks, we can also show you in go to the favorite Garden Explorer website, Dawes Arboretum.
I do it quite a lot.
Yeah.
But instead of Wikipedia, I tend to use more scientific. This has been something we've discussed over the years. I tend to use more scientific resources, at least for taxa. Florida, North America. There, as you can see, the GRIN, GRIN taxonomy, USDA plants database.
Yeah. So these web links are then published. So Greg has then put this as the first one, and then etc.
Actually, I think they're all just sent as one. I don't care what order they're in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Such a careless man, but there it is. Okay. So that's web links. Was that okay, Elaine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Every time I see something, I think, well, how do you correct the small e in Eastern North America to a large E, and where is that hidden? And I guess my concern is mostly you're going to figure out our data eventually, and I probably have no need to worry.
Mhm. Well, the small e I will address for us. That's our custom thing. Eastern isn't a proper noun for us. We just consider it a modifier. So,
But the distribution isn't called distribution in Iris, right? It's called locality/origin.
Here it is, distribution. Yeah.
The distribution of that species. And those can be corrected if you, say you wanted that to say, North America, just
Sure.
instead of in America, you could just type out North America, and then you can correct them all at the same time. Now watch what he's going to do. Okay, he's got North America there. Now if you select that, Havard, go ahead and select that.
Yeah.
Now click the replace button, and now type in N and find in America, and now click that. And now click replace. It'll take all the old ones and say North America instead of in America, unless it meant to say Northern America, but then you might say something. So, you can in one fell swoop, you can replace whole list items with something that is corrected or spelled differently.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So the key here, when you see this little replace button here, that is an indicator that you're dealing with what we call a self-populated list.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that when you can record what you like in this field, like in Habitat, but then it will show you all the different entries that have been recorded in the past. So you can say, okay, so we have grassland and beach sand, for example. Then you can see here grassland and beach sand. So that's a new one. And then I can just add that directly. But then if somebody gets very excited and comes up with really weird things, you can then tidy that up retrospectively as well by using that replace button. So you sort of fix it that way. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I might say Korea and Japan, and then somewhere else it's Japan and Korea. So instead of having both entries, I can make them all the same.
Right.
Yep.
Sorry about my nitpicky.
Oh no, I find it
for others.
Yeah, you, Elaine, you're one of the most thorough people I know. I appreciate your nitpickiness.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go to some other questions here. Web links. I think we've covered that. So the distinction between when it comes to web links, there's also book references or library references that you record here on the taxa, and also you can do that on the accession. If I go here on the accession, you also have a reference tab where you have book references where you might say something, or you could also have permits down here.
Yeah, but on accessions, I tend to keep only if that accession that you're referencing there is in a particular book.
Yeah, exactly.
Name. Somebody has published like you've introduced a new cultivar, and it's listed in a book, and it's tied to that original accession. You could add that book to that because it means that individual accession and not just a name in general.
Yeah, and there's also you can also add references when you identify plants here when you can
like references that you use
to make sure that this was Trollius.
To key out that plant.
Key out that plant. Thank you, Greg. That's the word I wanted to use. Yeah. So I was waiting for that moment when I learned something new today, and that happened now. So thank you. Thank you.
The dichotomous key. Let's make a poem.
Yeah. So I think also what you asked about here was the web search that comes up here, and how do you set that up? I mean, when we deliver the system, we give you the more or less what's in the trial database, but there is a possibility to add more and take away those you don't care for in what is found under web links down here, where you have, this is a bit cryptic, but don't worry, if you don't understand how to do it, get in touch with us. There's a good link on the forum as well. I'm just going to show that. This is a bit of repetition for some of you, but if I go to irisbg.support, you will see that the forum have a special thread about this. If I search for web links, where you can see a number of other, yeah, you need to separate it, I think, to get the...
You always pick the wrong one. I always do that too. If I have two, I always pick the wrong one.
Yeah, so here's a long thread with, well, it's not that long, but it's a lot of suggestions where you could, if you want to have the African plant database or Google Scholar or whatever. So have a look here if you want to, if you think that you would like to see some other things on the list that you use. Yeah.
But the benefit to that, and what that does, is that sends a URL with the plant name in it that you're currently looking at, rather than going to something that isn't searchable. Now, I do add like a Grin taxonomy. You know, you can't send it the name directly, so I just put the link to the search page of a Grin taxonomy on that list, and then pull it up, and then type in or copy and paste the plant name that I'm on, and do a search directly from there. And then I have to manually paste the return URL back into my web link to get back to that same spot. So it's an added step. But things like the USDA plants database, you can send the name directly. And sometimes you'll end up with a list of names. It might find 5 things that are a result. So instead of just pasting that result with all 5 choices, once I've clicked on this is very confusing, I know, but once I've clicked on the one that I want, I copy and paste that URL into that field, so it goes directly to that plant.
Yep.
If you have further questions, I can expound in more detail. But
okay. Yep. Cool. So that was web links, I think. So it is. You could argue that it's a bit techy to get this working, but it's nothing you keep on. You don't spend a lot of time on it when you have your list ready and you're up and running. Then you just yeah. So it's not like a daily chore to go in here. So there was a question also about localities and the locations. Is the question is whether they are, what's the difference, or?
No, I think I have that figured out now. I saw that you had location codes and then a more complete name for a location as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
They give you breakfast?
So this is yeah, obviously wild, areas in the wild, so that you can yeah. Okay. Well, we'll go to the next one.
Call you back in a minute. Okay.
So definitions for fields. Well, in non-intuitive fields, we try to give you a little bit of a hint. So if I go here, for example, you will see that if I put my mouse over, it will give you some extra information. External reference for material in other collections. So that's as far as it goes in terms of help. And then, of course, there is the help as well, which you find here, content. But it doesn't not go in much detail on field level help. So but we will try to sort of supplement that as best as we can, so that you can. Greg.
I was just going to say, in years past, when I wrote my own plant records program, I was severely lacking in help. I actually had the Windows help tool where I would write help files, but that was the last thing that I wanted to actually focus on. So you had to figure it out yourself.
Well, the danger there is people are going to enter whatever they think it is. And what I didn't realize is that when you hover on the field name, that something comes up. And I don't see it coming up now, but I think you just have to be patient and hover.
All of them have it. Certain ones don't have the tooltip help.
Yeah, not all of them. So the ones that we have sort of where we have had feedback and people wonder what is this? That's where we've added it. So because ideally, of course, this should be sort of self-explanatory. I mean, some accession year, this is sort of, some of them are very sort of.
Absolutely, many of them are.
Yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, we will keep on looking at that. Okay, let's go. And that's a trick with this one. Some of these fields are also so generic, like accession type. It can be used for quite a number of things. So that's why there's no help here, and that's why this comes up, because it is really dependent on what type of garden or institution we're dealing with, how you want to use it. So that's typically a question or a discussion we have when we transfer data or when we have webinars like this. Exactly.
I think once I see our data where it's supposed to be, then it will be obvious what the fields mean.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. Yeah.
And even in the interim, though, Elaine, if you were to go through and enter some of your accessions in manually, 5, 10, 15 of them, and just see where everything fits, and then try to do things with it that you do on a daily basis, like make a report, do some research that somebody might ask you, and make sure that you're able to get out of it what you need. You can sort of find if things are working for you in the current position.
Right. I wish there was a way for us to do a mini migration of our own.
Well, I think I mentioned to you, I was one of the few people who was so gung-ho when I got the trial version. I went through and
figured it out.
And I deleted all the integral data that came with it, the trial data, and then I did a full import of all my plant records in the format that I could use, because I knew that I was purchasing a program, and in the 2-month period, I kept both programs updated with changes. And then once we got the license, I put the license into the trial database, and it was the full version with no integration or transfer, because it was all done and up.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So I had a good test.
Yeah. It took you, several months, obviously, so it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wish we could somehow. It's just a lot of, it's like moving a botanic garden. I think, take up a plant, look at it, and put it in a wheelbarrow, and yeah. Anyway, let's go to the next question. Yeah, I think we took the field name question.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a question about life form and things like that. I think we've done that. Yeah. So unknown genus. How does this whole thing work with old genera and synonyms and things like that? Is that the question here?
Yeah, it's just we do higher taxon for indents for genera. We don't have any indents to family, but it'll be like genus SP period. And then there's another box that you check whether it's a higher taxon, an accepted name, a synonym, an orthographic variant or misspelling, and so on. Not found in the literature, that's another one. Unchecked name, but you have the equivalent, I'm sure.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if I wanted to record, let's say, a new accession that was we know it's a Trollius, but we're not sure what.
Mhm.
So I would then clear the screen, accession this, and then start looking for Trollius. I might already have the SP in here. I see.
Mhm.
Uh,
Right.
But I don't. So I'm
Well.
going to then I just go in and record that new taxa. I just
Mhm.
clear the screen, and then on the names tab here, I just say it's Trollius, and then species SP, and that's it. And then I probably will then, if I tag it as provisional, that means
Mhm.
that it won't. There are certain lists like it won't go online, for example. So
Correct.
that will tag it so that it is considered to be. Oops. I probably had it already, so that was a bad
Okay.
example. I'll take
Yeah,
another.
far enough.
Let's do Tulipa. Hopefully that works. Yeah, it's a Tulipa. It's slightly different. So that's how you add those.
And
And
if
then
you want a common name, you could just say tulip because you're not being specific.
What I don't understand there is Tulipa, it said it was accepted, but you're also calling it provisional. So you're calling it an accepted name somewhere, but it's not going to show up because.
Well, that just means it's the primary name on that list because you can have synonyms. Accepted is sort of a misnomer there. That just means it's your primary listed name. Now, what I've done on that screen is, let me pull up mine here so I can be a little bit more descriptive. But we have a botanist on staff, Dr. David Brandenburg, and years ago he was writing name verification records for me, which I've more or less taken over the years. But he had to come up with a code for how the name was listed in the literature, and I have these codes under the. Actually, I just put it under name source, under name properties there. If you scroll down a little bit on your screen, you'll see name source. And I'm not sure if there's anything in there yet, but that's one of those self-populating fields so you can type things. Yeah, there's like nothing in there. But they all start with so there's either NNL, which means name not listed, so it's not found in any literature. Excuse me. So that'd be like a tulip SP. That's not a listed name. I mean, it would all be caps on mine, but then I have a description afterwards. But then name listed, authors disagree. Name listed only found in nursery catalog. Name listed other for random things, possibly illegitimate, spelling,
Yes.
or a few sources, or well established. So I can specify the validity of that name from literature with that code, and then if I go through all the ones that are only listed in nursery catalogs and review them in new books, I can see if they've been recently published. So there's ways to sort through, go through all the possibly illegitimate names and then try to see if those have been resolved for some reason. But it's a way to flag them for future investigation or just to show that it's a well-established name.
Right. It's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah. I think that's you have to sort of take it in stages and come to another webinar when you feel you're really comfortable with the basics and some of the more advanced stuff, and then before you know it, you'll be telling Greg how to do things.
Yeah.
Well,
over my job, Elaine.
Thanks for bearing with me.
Yeah, I know that's.
Like I said, I'm very proud of your interest and your thoroughness. So.
Yeah. Well, it's 10:57.
Yeah, we're sort of I think one thing is we sort of covered quite a lot. There was one question finally here about alphabetic stuff and alphabetic order. So one thing I would say when it comes to these lists in general, when you see here, when you pick from a list, like if I go to taxa here, I'm just going to say that. No, I need to. Oh, never mind. We need to click. Don't care. If I go to the taxa screen here, and then you have, for example, the list here is not alphabetic, as you can see, but you can click on the columns to sort it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
But there's another significant part, and that is hidden down here. If you go to the code list, you will see here.
I haven't been there yet. I love that.
Yeah, when you go down here to Lifeform, you also have the sort value here. So you can force that the ones that are most used, for example, come first or whatever. So you can give them a sort order that are, logical for you, but not necessarily alphabetic.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a good example, if you would go back to accessions and find something with an item, accessions, see if you already have an item available here.
Never mind. I'll just search for something. I think. I should. Hold on. I'm just gonna. So and there we go. Let's get it closer.
There you go.
That's
now
one item.
Now where it says the status, I start off with something like it's propagated might be first, because I sort of go through a progression: propagated, successful propagation, then it's in the nursery, blah blah blah, then it gets planted, then it gets inventoried, then it gets so I can sort those basically in the order that things happen. So it's not alphabetical, it's a logical order of the steps of a plant's life cycle.
Right.
So you can order it however you see fit by using that code that he just showed you under code lists.
Right.
That one is under item status. That's a very significant list. Yeah.
But see, it still has the sort order as well. So if it's unsorted, it's going to show up in that order that you gave it there. But if you want it alphabetically because you forgot where planted was and you know it's toward the lower middle of the alphabet, you can just scroll down alphabetically and find it.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay. I think, are there any sort of last-minute things you would like us to cover, Elaine, or have we?
I'm not sure how, on my end, I type in a question. I don't know how you're going to show me that.
On the Join Me viewer, the screen?
Yeah, and what I'm looking at right now, I mean.
There should be like a button for chat.
Okay.
There's a little sort of.
Chat icon.
I'll find that eventually.
Yeah, but you just basically hey, chat.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. Oh, there it is. Oh, geez, oh man. Because I saw Peggy did it. Yeah.
Okay. We're not old, are we?
Here we go. Here we go.
If it was a snake, it would have bit you.
Yeah. Thank you. So I just typed in thank you, but I'm looking at how do I get it to you? Or do you see it?
I think I need to. Yeah.
Oh, well, I appreciate it.
No, that's great.
How do do you see my thank you?
Not yet. You probably need to click enter. There we see it. Yes.
Okay.
Well, that was Greg's.
No, I see Greg's thank you. What do you just hit? Enter?
Yeah, just press enter.
Okay.
Yeah.
God, I'm so sad.
I guess I've been
great. I'll join as well. Okay, thank you everyone for joining, and we'll have the recording up soon. I'll stop the recording.